An accidental Randy Savage. Uh-huh. What do we want to talk about first today, guys?
Yeah. Talk about that time you got an accidental Randy.
I'm never accidentally Randy. Oh, wait. Sometimes I am.
Yeah, everybody is.
Yeah. Well, first, how's everybody doing?
I'm still getting settled. I'm not settled yet.
Okay, well, then that's why we're just going to chatter for a little bit and get settled.
Well, I was saying that's how I'm doing. I'm doing unsettled.
Okay. Hannah, how are you?
Ginger people do have souls,
okay.
all right?
All right. Sorry. That was an accent again.
I want it to be just like this on the recording. There's just like random faint sounds, like someone's listening to Vines in the background.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I'm fully equipped to make that happen.
I don't know if this is legal, but
it's legal.
Okay.
If it's available for Vines, if it's on Vines,
what does this
legal.
one do?
Oh.
Is that the right one?
Why?
Because we all know what that is.
Not everybody knows what that is.
They don't need to know.
We are completely and 100% transparent on this podcast.
Who's doing the read-in and who's doing the disclaimer?
I'll do the intro, and then I'll just throw it at somebody. Welcome to the Pod Cultcast, where we talk about life, love, learning, and libido, and share our journey through polyamory and kink. I'm Chastain.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Max.
I'm glad everyone remembers who they are.
Max has a soundboard today, and he is playing with it. Yeah,
that's its name.
Yeah, did you name the soundboard?
No, it's just an app. I don't get to name it. Somebody else already named it.
What kind of app is it?
I think it's called the Dank Meme Soundboard.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I enjoy the dank memes. I think there's a dank memes YouTube channel. Big fan. Lord of mercy. Oh no.
Oh.
My thumbnail came off.
Oh no.
It's okay. It's just my polish.
Yeah, that's the disturbing thing about your gel fingernails. It's just finding a fingernail around the house.
They're my peelies.
It's real upsetting, dude.
They're my peelies.
And I'm like, I see a fingernail around the house, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Illuminati.
So we had a fail this week. We messed up. Well, we didn't really mess up.
No, we didn't mess up.
It just the plan didn't work out.
The plan did not work out.
We were going to
the clinic.
Tuesday night STI testing clinic that's offered it for free. At
Richmond City Health District. What?
And I think the way it operates, this is purely conjecture on my part. I think the way it operates is they have a grant and budget out the number of people they see per clinic.
Yeah.
To not like spend up their grant before grant re-up time.
Right. I asked questions because
there you go.
In my experience, every time I've gone, it's improved. The people who are volunteers doing the blood work have improved. The getting people in, getting people out has gone faster and more smoothly. And so I talked to the chick, can't remember her name, doesn't matter, but one of the lovely people who check you in and ask you invasive questions at the Richmond City Health Department. And she said that they've undergone different management shifts 3 times, and that this is the 3rd, and they're hoping that with a new crop of people coming in, a new crop of volunteers, that everything will go smoothly. I complimented them, and then I made sure I complimented the guy doing the blood work who, he's trying. He's trying his best. Trying his best. Nobody can ever get a vein on me. I was the only one who actually got my testing done. We think they may or may not have gotten enough blood for my HIV and my syphilis test. So I might have to go back in during a day clinic when they actually have phlebotomists there to draw my blood. Right. But they don't test for everything. They don't test for herpes, and they don't test for, they don't test for HPV, which that's not really a sexually transmitted disease.
It is. It is a
Is it?
STI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. They don't test for HPV, and they don't test for trick. They only test for chlamydia, syphilis,
and treat.
Well, but this is the evening clinic. They don't treat during the evening clinic.
Wow, the joke went. It's
trick or treat.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the plan was that we were all going to do our testing at this clinic, and then we were going to come back here and talk about it all together.
Right.
But since we didn't do that, we're here a few days later, and we're just going to talk in general about testing and about STI stuff and about our experiences with all of that. But before we do that,
This is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships, sex and kink, and polyam issues, and whatever else comes up. While we talk about those things, we will probably also touch on stuff like abuse and violence, and these can be difficult topics, so...
Oh, Lord. I'm pretty sure. I'm hoping that's the right length for copyright. I really don't want to have to lose our...
in any event.
We're available on iHeartRadio now. That just happened.
Right.
So we're available on a long list of podcast playing applications. So if you check us out, please give us a like or share our podcast or...
Yes, so I've been thinking about like our past testing experiences a lot. And I was thinking about, Chas, when you and I were Craigslist swingers.
What? No fun sound effects for that?
Oh, okay. I was thinking about like the things that I don't think the soundboard thing is going to work out. I was thinking about like the things that everybody lists in their like Craigslist ads, the sort of like phrases that we joke about being, you know, no drama, 420 friendly,
Judge
height,
and
weight,
disease free.
proportionate, but that's the one. Everybody says D&D free.
Yep.
Even though what they really mean is it doesn't burn when I pee right now.
Dungeons and
I
Dragons.
don't have
free.
actual tests. I've never
No
like,
symptoms,
tested,
yeah.
and I don't have results.
Not level 4 paladin.
So, you know, you and I didn't actually start doing regular scheduled testing until we got involved with the polyam community here, and we heard people talking about their testing regimen and about keeping results and stuff.
Yep.
So that's been, 4 or 5 years or so.
Longer than that. 7 years.
And felt like I had to do some teaching while I was there. Like I had to explain why I was there to get testing, and that like I wasn't having everything was fine, but that I felt like I should do because I was sexually active people, and it was the safe and responsible thing to do. And the nurses there didn't get it whatsoever, and I also had to explain like why we use the term STI instead of STD. Does anybody want to jump in on why we use the term STI instead of STD?
Because they're not diseases, they're infections.
Right.
Yeah.
Very basically, yeah.
Yeah, and disease has a like different connotation, and it has a lot of stigma attached to it. So I think that's why. I mean, I would have to look up like the specific ins and outs of why.
No, I think that's...
But they're infections, and they're usually, most of them are treatable with antibiotics, except for HIV, which is a lifelong thing that you have, and syphilis. No, syphilis is curable. Herpes is not.
I don't.
Is syphilis a controlled thing? I don't know.
I mean, unless it has become, but it wasn't for a long time.
Well, I know that
that's
syphilis
what
is very
Al Capone died of.
degenerative. So.
Yeah. And someone's looking it up, I think.
It's
I know
also
syphilis
important,
is
though.
terrible.
It's an important distinction because you can have an infection and you can transmit an or not.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so that time when that place in particular mails your results to you, and so when that envelope came in, I was an envelope in a burst of confetti that says, "You've got everything."
It is curable.
It is curable. Okay.
Yeah, syphilis is
If
curable.
only Al Capone had done that.
Yeah, HPV you have all your life, herpes you have all your life. Those are like, and AIDS, of course, HIV. But everything else is treatable.
Right. I wonder how the HPV vaccine
It's recommended for everybody now.
Right. I wonder how it affects people who are already carrying HPV, because I know that there are vaccines that are in development, I've read, for HSV. That are meant to, in the same way that a lot of HIV medicine now can take your levels down to where it's not perceivable in your blood.
Well, I thought that what we could do is actually take a little quiz. I wanted to quiz you guys on your on your STI knowledge. What did you find out over there?
Oh, well, no, I was laughing at you bringing up a quiz because so far we're all evidence points to we're going to do smashingly.
Is that sarcasm?
No.
Is that sarcasm?
No. Everything I say is sarcasm.
That's not true.
Even that.
What?
And that.
Okay, so I have a quiz thing, but First, I want to say that the places I have had good testing experiences are 100% the health department. The places I have had bad testing experiences are everywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Max, you and I went to Planned Parenthood. They forgot half of your testing.
Right.
They didn't even
just
process your
completely-
stuff.
Well, they completely lost it.
Yeah.
Like, I went back to get my results, and they were like, I don't know, it's just not here, dude.
And they also called them diseases, and I had to educate them about polyamory. And I've had to, the couple of times I've been there, I've had to educate them about polyamory. And they've had a lot of intrusive questions. And there's a lack of professionalism in there about testing stuff. Everything else is great. Their women's services, everything else. It's just the testing stuff. It just doesn't seem to be their cup of tea. So I really recommend just going to the health department. It's anonymous. It's typically free. Or if they charge your insurance, you just talk to them about it and they help you figure out what you need to do. But they do have free clinics. And if you can hit a free clinic, that's just the best way to go. Unless you need to get tested for hepatitis or if you're symptomatic or, if you need treatment, you can't usually go to just a little free clinic. You need to go to one of their actual treatment clinics. Just look at the website for your health department.
Well, wherever you are, you're not here.
I know, I'm talking about in
just
general.
Googling,
Yeah.
And the insurance thing is really tricky because, Hannah, you had a really bad experience with...
My insurance doesn't work. So I've had a really great experience with my doctor, who will order whatever tests I want whenever I want them, pretty much. But my insurance will not cover that. So I've had to kind of work around them instead. And yeah, I had a rough time at the health clinic. I paid my self-pay and left. And then weeks or they had my insurance on file, had sent it to them. It got denied. And then I got a bill for a few $100s.
Yeah.
Freaked me out. And they got it all resolved. It just took several weeks. Like you were saying, they're working with volunteers. They're working with inconsistent staffing. They did the best they could, but it was really stressful.
Yeah.
And we've known several people locally who anecdotally have had similar problems, whether they went to a private doctor or whatever, that health and strange about testing stuff.
Well,
so
typically
that's definitely a thing to think about.
they'll cover at least one a year, like with your checkup sort of thing. Okay. But past that, if you are sexually active, I personally test every 6 months. We all test every 6 months together. I think we test usually in February and September or end of August. We were a little late this month, but we haven't been. So we test every 6 months. I know people who test every 3 months, and I feel like that's a little excessive. But that's my feeling and not at all based on any kind of fact or science. You can't just have sex and then get tested. There are times that it takes it takes these infections to sort of work themselves out. Yeah, get a foothold in the body. So, you can be exposed to something and not be symptomatic ever or not show anything on a test for, up to 6 weeks, I know HIV takes a long time. Okay.
You need your doctor, because a lot of the tests are antibody tests, which could mean you had an infection, your body already fought it, and you're not not endangering anyone else. But until you actually...
Exactly. Okay, so before we get into actual talking about testing and stuff, can we just talk about the stigma? Because, I know people who they have an STI, typically it's herpes, and they will only date other people with herpes, which is inaccurate because there are different strains. But it's a stigma, and there are people who include their status in their usernames in terms of herpes. That seems to be the big one.
Yes.
But there's this stigma, and I think going back to what you said, drug and disease free or clean, people saying they're clean. I've had a lot of people tell me when I ask them about testing, when I first start dating somebody, oh, I'm clean.
Well, and
there's no such thing.
Yeah, well, I've had to try to excise that word too.
Right.
Because typically what I do with the people that I am in relationships with or in a casual thing with is every time we do testing, I go and touch base with people and say here's what I tested for, here were the results, and I always have to catch myself and say, don't say clean for these things.
Right. It's either positive or negative.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a big stigma attached to it. I try to talk about testing on my social media, and anytime we're going, I talk about the fact that we're going as a unit, that it's not shameful in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I feel like everybody should get tested regardless of the kind of relationship that you have. Regardless, unless you're completely 100% abstinent and you never have contact with bodily fluids in any way, if you don't drink after people, all that stuff, like, that's the only way you can completely avoid having an STI or getting an STI. Contracting is contracting. So, yeah. So I don't think there should be a stigma. Have any of you when going testing, faced weird questions from your doctor or nurses or anybody regarding, I mean, we just talked about having a bad experience at Patient First,
and also Planned Parenthood.
Right.
I also had an experience with doctors there where I was like discussing vectors, is that the right word, for, percentages and risk factors and stuff like that. And I as a construction worker, was telling these people who are healthcare workers,
right,
like the facts and figures and stuff, like, which is a crappy experience.
Well, one of the great things about being involved with the polyam community locally and also the BDSM community locally is they typically will have the health department come in and talk about, I mean, we've had lots of, opportunities to learn more about testing and to learn about PrEP and all that stuff. And I think that's amazing. And our community does a really good job of reaching out to the health department and making sure we get the presenters in and to come talk about stuff. And that's really exciting. And I think that helps remove the stigma too. Like, oh, this is a professional giving us facts about a thing. So I don't know. I get excited about people coming and teaching me stuff about that. Have you had bad experiences, Eric?
I haven't really.
I know the majority of your lifelong testing experience has been with me. I know you hate needles.
Yeah, that's really the only part.
Yeah.
Is negative, but I haven't witnessed any kind of stigma or had to educate any other people because it was only going with you guys that yeah. But I'm actually really surprised to hear that from you guys, that the people that are doing the testing don't really necessarily know so much about what they're doing.
Yeah, well, and I think unless they're trained specifically to deal with STI testing, if that's
so
just their job.
So do you mean the more general their scope of work is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not something that they encounter every day, because even promiscuous generally don't often get testing. It's a lot of my experience with dating women who don't identify as some brand of non-monogamous, but, have several sexual partners throughout a year, their radar whatsoever.
And there's a big, there's this thing that I hear frequently, which is like, why would I get tested? I'm not dirty. Why would I get tested? I don't have anything. Why would I get tested? Right. Like, only people who are like awful, horrible, slutty people get tested. Like, no, like, everybody should get tested.
This is actually to my coworkers, because I had and when I came back, I was like accosted in the parking lot by someone who was worried about me because I had taken a random doctor's visit, and that seemed like personal information, and it was, right. And I didn't have to tell her if I didn't want to, but eventually, like, she was so concerned about me. I said, I'm getting routine blood work, and she was like, that's not a thing. You don't just get blood work. Well, first of all, you do.
Yeah.
If you go to the doctor.
On a regular basis,
they
check all
but this is for STI testing, and she had never heard of it before.
Yeah.
That never occurred to me to do that. I guess I've just been, like, trusting in God, and I was like, well, you should maybe just, like, check up on that. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, God, if that's your belief system, that God created all, like, God made syphilis, so... That right. Also God also helped us have scientists who invented tests for these things.
And I've had really positive experiences with my doctor at Planned Parenthood and at the health department, which is not to dismiss anybody else's experiences, but just to say everyone I've encountered has been really happy that I'm there.
Right.
And every time, they ask, so why are you coming in today? And I just say, this is my routine every 6 months. You can see they're really excited. Is that something that they're working towards?
At the health department, they're very encouraging.
They're putting a lot of money into trying to educate and make this a routine.
I have to say, I go to Planned Parenthood for my Lady Bit services, and I've never had a problem with them. I have always loved them. I have an IUD, and when I had problems with an IUD in the past, they were sort of Johnny on the spot with making sure I had the help I needed, making sure that I was treated well. So I think it's just not in their wheelhouse. They deal with a different typically, like, you know, they're dealing with different kinds of sexual health stuff. So, yeah. I think sexual health in general is just not something people talk about very openly. I mean, okay, so I'm going to talk about the Vagina Bible for like 2 seconds. So I just read the Vagina Bible. I really recommend it. It will be in the show notes. We have show notes for every episode where we make a list of terms that you may or may not have heard before, but we try to link articles that are interesting. And we also always put a link to any books or talks or references or podcasts or anything that we find, you know, pertinent or just comes up. And the Vagina Bible changed my life recently. And I have a lot of feelings about my lady bits. And one of those feelings about my lady bits, I have typically emotionally divorced myself of being involved with anything below my waist since I was a teenager. And then I got knocked up at 19 and I had to sort of be involved with what was going on below my waist at that point. But other than the occasional yeast infection and things like that, like I don't have a lot of lady bit issues. And so I don't spend a lot of time doing anything other than going and getting my pap smears, and letting them do a poke about. So I, like, for the first time in my life, I'm trying to cultivate a relationship with my genitals. That sounds really weird to say.
No, it doesn't. I've been doing it forever.
A different kind of relationship. I've been trying to cultivate an emotional relationship with my genitals. Oh, okay. Eric just nodded at me. But one of the things that has always made me hesitant to talk about sex with doctors and talk about testing and stuff like that is, one, I'm afraid they're going to give me misinformation because doctors can can become doctors with C's, and that's a thing. But I have never had doctors give me accurate information about my lady bits. I have never had a doctor say this shouldn't hurt. I have never had a doctor say this is perfectly when I have dealt with my lady bits. And I've been going to gynecologists since I was 13 years old. And I have never once had a doctor be reassuring about what was going on with my body or treat me gently. And I didn't realize that I could ask for that. I thought it was always supposed to hurt when you go to the gynecologist. And so for me, it's kind of amazing and empowering to have that knowledge. And the Vagina Bible gave that to me. With STI testing, like, I felt empowered by the communities that we're involved with to get STI tested. But prior to that, I still had that sort of like, oh, like, that's for promiscuous people. But here's the thing, I was promiscuous. And I was doing the, like, drug and disease-free thing, too.
Hi, this is Chastain from the Pod Cultcast. We'd like to take a second to thank our Patreon patrons, our cult bursars, Jenny and Chip. They're making it possible for us to keep our episodes available indefinitely and also produce more content every month. Our patrons get exclusive access to episodes of the Cultcast Media Club, where we talk about books, movies, basically anything that has something to do with kink or polyamory. If you'd like to support us, go to www.patreon.com/podcultcast. Remember, that's cult with a V. For just $1 a month, you get access to our exclusive RSS feed and a little bit of love from our Captain Max. Thank you so much for believing in us.
I'm going to say some real shit about, what we hear
Yeah.
inside the polyam community.
Yeah.
Is we hear people talk all the time about having conversations about testing, about carrying.
I've never seen anybody whip out results, and nobody's ever had
Yeah,
results.
that's a little weird to me.
I've
but
initiated the conversation every single time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
always initiate the conversation. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who always initiates the conversation. I'm a first date talk about testing, or even before you get to the dating part. If I think I might fuck somebody, I talk about testing just to give them the opportunity to go freshen up on it.
Yeah, it's a text conversation. That
Yeah. Like, that's, fourth Tinder message in.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I had the conversation I remember the first time that I had the conversation with somebody before we like really hung out, you know, and you were doing a crafting night in here, making those foxtails.
Yeah.
And I was sitting outside texting with somebody that I've been hanging out with at parties and stuff in the lead up to hanging out together for the first time. And like we had the conversation and it felt fucking great. I was like, I did this right. Like I finally nailed this. Like I initiated the conversation. We're talking about our results. Like this is awesome. And it really did. It felt fucking great.
Yeah.
And now it's just like a routine thing that, you know, I do whenever I'm going to meet somebody. But yeah.
Well, it's part of my negotiation. If I'm going to play casually with anybody, be it sexually or kink-wise, I want to know what pathogens, bloodborne pathogens, or anything I might be exposed to. I mean, you can get stuff from skin-to-skin contact, and I don't want to talk too much about how you can get things because I want to quiz you guys and not give you all the answers first. But I've had people in the community be a little weirded out by me talking about testing stuff. And I also, like you said, I hear a lot of people saying, you know, you carry your results around with you, yada, 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 but I've never seen anybody whip out the results. Like, I haven't picked up my results from the last time we got tested, but I didn't have any changes, so I had the previous copy in my car, and I just keep it in my car. I keep it in the little pocket with my really shitty sun visor thing that, my, like, Ed Hardy sun visor thing that I got at Walmart for $7.
Yeah, I got a plastic folder thing that mine just have sat in the back of my truck.
Yeah. Like, Eric, have you ever picked up your results?
Yeah, but I don't keep them in my car.
I keep them in my car. Like, you never know.
Good. Yeah, I haven't needed to.
Yeah. Hannah?
It's not AAA.
Do you keep your results?
I did very well. I didn't pick up my last time either.
Yeah.
I had the sweetest interaction on a first date. Just talking about like stigma and how different, where it was an OkCupid date, impulsive, like we went to dinner, we watched the sunset, and they walked me back to my car, and like as we were walking back, like in anticipation of whatever may or may not like be going on in my head, they said, you know, I don't kiss on a first date, but I'll give you a really big hug because I have a closed circle that doesn't test positive, you know, for HSV, and that's how we want to keep it. And, you know, like before any moment of interaction even came up, even though it was a casual thing, even though we never saw each other again, I just felt really awesome about that interaction because I knew I wasn't going to mess up. I wasn't going to make anything awkward. They weren't going to make anything, you know, it was like we know that we're not in a place to have a deep conversation about this. So let's just stay away from any need for that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had a lot of the closed circle things, where, you know, we all test, we all share our results with our partners. We all, you know, it's a closed ecosystem and we want to make sure that it stays that way. If we bring anything new into the ecosystem, we just want to make sure we know, you know, and I've never heard stories about people being excluded, but I have had stories about entire, like, polyam pods, like, or polycules getting tested because I think, you know, somebody was showing some symptoms and stuff like that. I mean, it happens. It's not a big deal if it happens. It's some medication you have to take at this point. The biggest stigma, I think, is really cosmetic. It's all about, like, it's uncomfortable to have any kind of breakouts and things like that. And specifically, I'm talking about things like herpes and whatnot. But it's not going to kill you. You're not going to die. It's not cancer.
There's definitely a way out of parenthesis.
Mm-hmm.
You have your quiz queued up?
I do. Are you guys ready to take my quiz?
Yes.
Okay, so I looked for a lot of internet quizzes about STI health, and I wanted to look for something that would be something that anybody would pull up and take, that would maybe have medically accurate information, but the first thing that stands out to me about this quiz is that it is called How Much Do You Know About STDs? STDs is still the common terminology that most people recognize them as. And when you say STIs, people go, what's that? So, everybody listening to this podcast, I want to hear you out in the world telling me that you know it's an STI, not an STD.
That's not how podcasts work.
That's how our podcast works.
I never hear what they're saying.
Well, you don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so first question. True or false?
True.
True or false? You can get herpes from a toilet seat.
False.
Who's to say?
False.
Okay, so we have... You said false, Max?
Yes.
Hannah said false. You said...
False.
False. Okay, and survey says correct. Good job, everybody. Ding, ding, ding. Genital herpes, like other sexually transmitted diseases, STIs, transmitted infections, is spread by vaginal, oral, and anal sex. The virus that causes it cannot live long outside the body, so you cannot catch it from an object like a toilet seat or a towel. Oral herpes is spread by saliva, usually during kissing or oral sex. There is a chance that you can share a drink with somebody and contract herpes because you are having contact in a small period of time with saliva. Any questions or comments about that? Are you surprised? Or good job.
No, we all got it right, so we're not surprised by the thing we already knew.
And so this is a quiz from WebMD, and I'll put a link to this quiz in the show notes so you can take it. But now you're hearing all the answers. So
Is
if you
the
wanna,
answer cancer on this one? If it's
The
WebMD?
answer-
So pause now. Go take
so
the
pause
quiz.
now and go read the show notes, take the quiz, and see if you do better than we do.
Then
Okay.
don't forget to come back and play the rest of the
Then finish
episode.
listening to the podcast.
And
There
then
are
go
lots
to
of
the
instructions.
Patreon.
Okay, are you writing this down? All right. Next question. Which better protects you against STDs? I'm reading the questions as they're written, sorry. STIs. 1 condom, 2 condoms,
Red condom, blue
I'm trying to
condom?
get in on this.
red condom, blue condom.
2 condoms is more likely to rip
Rupture.
because of the friction between the two.
So which one better protects you from
1.
STIs?
One condom.
One
Yeah,
condom?
Is that really a question?
Yes, it's really a question. This is stuff people don't know. This is stuff that people get wrong.
Yeah, double bagging it is such a
It's bad.
common thought. Was
Yeah.
I've
people
thought of
actually
it,
think
yeah,
this
as
is
a
thing.
joke, not that people actually think that.
No, people actually. think
Well,
this
you
is
would
a
be
thing.
surprised to know that the answer is actually 1 condom.
It's not blue condom.
It's not blue condom or nor red condom. The color of the condom does not matter.
Colored
However,
condoms are weird.
we are speaking about latex or non-latex condoms and not speaking of
Natural
lambskin, the natural lambskin
yeah,
condoms.
using
Those do
stuff.
not protect from STIs because they are
They're
a
too
permeable
permeable.
barrier. Yes. You're learning stuff today on the Pod Cultcast. Okay, so it may sound super safe, but wearing 2 condoms doesn't double your protection. Instead, they can rub against each other, causing friction, the non-sexy kind. And that can make condoms break or tear, which makes them, it's pointless if they break or tear. Okay, good job. So far, you're 2 for 2. Okay, next up. It's easy to tell if your partner has an STI. True or false?
false.
False.
Gosh.
Most people.
Exactly. There are some symptoms like rashes or redness or sores, and sometimes not. Sometimes that's just an ingrown hair. People with razor burn. People with STIs don't always have symptoms. You can only know if you're tested, and then at that point, you could have a false positive. So you want to talk to your doctor about retesting in a certain period of time. All right. Who is most likely to have STIs?
Steve.
That's
You leave Steve alone. Teens and young adults, people in their 30s, senior citizens.
Everybody.
Oh,
The
actually,
older
that's a
you get,
pretty
the
tough
more
one.
sexual interactions you've had.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
so-
that would it really fall across age demographics.
Just answer the fucking
I
question.
would say everybody is just as susceptible as everybody else.
Okay, so your answer is all of the above.
My answer is once again the John Mulaney who's to say.
Okay, who's to say?
I would say it's on Hannah's logic.
Hannah's logic. Go over that logic one more time for me, Hannah.
My rationale was the older you had an STI.
Okay, since Eric is abstained over here, then
I'm
gonna...
not really abstaining. I just didn't want to deep dive into that
All
because
right.
one could also make the argument that in the older generations, right now, they were less sexually active
Oh,
in their
I think
day
that's
but-
false.
than
However-
a lot of the younger people are these days.
However-
we don't know.
There have been a lot of because since the rise of Viagra,
Yep.
The older population is more active.
Outbreaks
Yes.
in nursing
homes,
homes
yeah.
Oh, wow.
of different infections.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I've read this as well.
so the answer that you all are choosing is seniors. Ding ding ding. You got it wrong.
Oh no!
I didn't say that it was seniors.
Oh my goodness gracious. About half of all new STI cases are people ages 15 to 24. The younger you start to have sex, the more likely you'll end up with an STI. But anyone can get one, especially if you have unprotected sex with a partner. You can also get herpes by kissing babies, to stop kissing babies. So you got it wrong.
I'm ashamed.
Teens and young adults. So if you are a parent, or you know a teen or young adult, or you are a young adult,
cut that shit out.
Or a teen, you should not listen to the show if you're under 18 years old.
Or wrap that shit up.
But yeah, wrap your shit and get tested regularly.
Not literally.
That's
gross.
Okay, I already gave away the answer to this one. True or false? You can get herpes by sharing a glass.
Yes.
True. Saliva spreads the virus.
Especially with Steve.
Did you leave Steve alone? Don't out Steve and Steve's thing. Okay. True or false? The pill protects against STIs.
You'll have to be specific on what kind of pill. There are many pills.
An
oral, you know what? He's just being
oral contraceptive taken
kind of correct
by people with ovaries and wombs and such protects against STIs. True or false?
No.
Well, no. If you're talking about that pill.
Yes, that pill.
Oxycontin don't help shit either. That's a pill.
Oxycontin increases your risk of getting STIs.
No, but there are
viral blockers that do
exactly.
help reduce the risk.
Yes, there are.
And
like PrEP.
I'm sure that some people would refer to that as the pill as well. It's time for me to take that pill.
No, they would probably say it's time for me to take PrEP.
Or that.
Specific Brian. Stop. Okay, so the pill protects you against STIs. No, it does not. It only has a percentage chance of keeping you from getting pregnant. And this is not a birth control episode, so we don't need to worry about those results. Yeah. Okay, true or false? A negative test result means you're in the clear.
Mm-mm.
Eric says no.
No.
Max says no.
No.
Hannah says no. All right, false. Survey says you are correct.
You can fall in that you would become symptomatic, or that you would start to show antibodies, or any number of things that would show up in testing.
Testing should be regular.
Infections caused by a virus like herpes, HPV, and HIV can take as long as 3 months to show up after you've been exposed. A follow-up test in 3 or more months will let you know for sure. Oh, that dog is ridiculous. Why is his ear up like that? Fix his ear. Tuck it. True or false? There is medicine to cure each STI. Eric says false. Max?
False.
Hannah? Correct. Doctors can cure some STIs like gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis with medication. Others, like herpes and HIV, and also I believe HPV, stay with you forever.
You can clear HPV.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Treatment also helps stop STIs from causing you further health problems. Okay, true or false? Sex toys can spread STIs.
True.
Yeah.
True. All right, and we are correct. You can pass around bacteria for each disease. You have to wash your toys appropriately according to the instructions for the type of material. And if you wash things in incorrect substances, so for example, if you use a harsh soap on something that's made out of silicone, even if it's medical grade, you can cause it to become porous.
Right. Make it more risky.
Exactly, and it becomes more risky. I highly recommend putting condoms on your sex toys. Make sure you use unlubricated condoms, or make sure that you're using something that you know works with the sex toy so it doesn't degrade the surface, which causes more risk. But yeah, I put condoms on my Hitachi. Like, just pop a condom on there. It's nice.
Right. And it's interesting to me. They have like specific condoms.
Oh, I just buy the
Isn't
XLs.
that called a Magnum?
Yeah, I just buy the Magnum.
No, but there are like Hitachi condoms that are made for them. I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it's great. I don't think it's funny. I think it's awesome.
I think it's marketing.
I think it's protecting people.
Yeah, that too.
It is hard to put a condom on a Hitachi, like a regular size condom.
They have girth.
They do. What is the most common STI? Do you want multiple choice, or are you just going to throw some guesses at me?
I mean, it's either HPV or HS.
Hannah, do you have an answer?
Oh, it's got to be HPV.
Yeah.
It's HIV. Yeah, I'm really confident about this answer. But right? Am I right? Yes, it is HPV. The genital human papillomavirus is the most common sexually transmitted infection in the U.S., and it's spread through vaginal, anal, and oral sex. You can get it even if your partner does not show symptoms. There are many types of HPV. Some cause genital warps. I said warps. Genital warps. Warp speed, sorry. Others lead to cancer, and you can lower your chances by using condoms, getting pap smears, and through vaccinations and treatments.
Right. I think before the vaccine came out, it was basically universal for anyone who had ever had sex to show that.
Yeah. All right. So that was all the questions.
Oh, that was it? That was the whole quiz?
Yep.
Wow, we got them all right.
It was
No,
more
you
on
didn't.
that quiz.
Oh,
You didn't get them all right.
I
you
got
was
that
two.
one right.
You scored an 80%. Okay. So it says you know the AP. Okay, so it says you know your STD ABCs, but you know your STI ABCs. Yeah. Good job.
Cool.
Good job.
I was thinking of another anecdote.
Okay.
Our local, where we all go for testing, our local clinic has started offering, based on the types of sex you have, not just the P test for chlamydia, but also a swab test for chlamydia.
May I pause you right there?
Yeah.
The swab is a more accurate test
Right.
than a urinalysis.
Right.
And I asked this question when I went in. I asked why they even bother to do the urinalysis, and it's because there are some people, mostly women, who feel it is unclean or dirty or tawdry or slutty to put a swab inside of them.
Or just gauche.
To put a swab inside of them. And I blame that on female genital shame. So please continue.
Anecdote.
So it's, they say based on the types of sex you have, and because of orientation and the types of sex I have, I just do the oral swab.
Right.
But I have active gag reflex. So I always imagine, because there's the little turnstile door that goes back to the lab.
Oh no.
Always imagine the people that are on the other side listening to me gag as I'm running this thing around my throat. And I feel badly for them because the worst thing in the world is to inconvenience another human being, as we have discussed frequently. So it just adds another layer of embarrassment to the whole situation, which is my whole thing. It's not anybody else's problem.
Right.
Feel uncomfortable situation.
Sorry.
Well, it's an uncomfortable thing to do.
Right, it's physically uncomfortable.
I did all 3 swabs this time, just for the heck of it, just to try it out, because I knew we were going to talk about it on the podcast, and I wanted to be able to say that I did all 3. The instructions are very specific. You have to hold the swab for the anal swab an inch away from the cotton tip so that you know that you're inserting it the right distance. I hurt myself somehow inserting my swab and have been very uncomfortable since. So I have a very tender tush. I recommend just being really gentle with yourself and not trying to force things. I was trying to rush. I did my anal swab last because I was going I did mouth first, then vagina, then anal, or rectal. It's rectal. And the oral swab is called the pharyngeal swab. So it's a P for pharyngeal. But yeah, so I did it in that order so I could, wash my hands, do my oral, wash my hands, do my vaginal, wash my hands, do my anal, wash my hands again. And yeah, I was just okay, I've been in here a really long time, and I know that they're I want to make sure that everybody else gets a chance to test it. Just shove this thing up my butt real quick. And I went, oh, ow. And you have to hold it in your butt and twirl it around for 15 to 20 seconds. Man, it was a bad testing day. I had a bad testing experience, and that wasn't anybody else's fault but mine. I was rushing. So don't rush your anal swabs. That is the moral, your rectal swab. This is the moral of the story.
That's good podcasting.
I have some statistics to share with you. Just general STI statistics. We can talk about them if we want to. 1 in 2 sexually active persons will contract an STI by age 25. Does that surprise anybody?
A little bit, yeah.
What's surprising about it?
Just that high number. Yeah, just the high number by age 25. A lot of the statistics I hear are by age 40.
But that's specific for herpes.
Well, no, it's a statistic I hear across the board. And, the more partners contract.
And I think, well studied on my part, it's just the general knowledge that I've had and seeing headlines or whatever, is that, young people today are having less sex than more careful about it. So at high risk is surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, these stats all come from the CDC, but I'm accessing them through sexualhealth.org, and I'll put a link in the show notes. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, estimate that nearly 20 million new STIs occur every year in this country, and half of those are among people aged 15 to 24. That surprises me. That seems really high. Our son is 19. Every time I see him, I go, do you need condoms? Do you need to go get testing? And recently I said that, and he said, no, I haven't been sexually active at all. So I don't, but when I decide I want to become sexually active again, I might reach out to you to help me go get testing and stuff. So I usually kick him some condoms and stuff if he needs them, but he's been buying his own, so I'm proud of him. It's a very grown-up thing to do, is buy your own condoms instead of getting them. I got condoms from my mom when I was growing up. Is this weird?
I think it's less common than a lot of things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well said.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, I'm kind of surprised to hear that you guys are surprised that the younger people are getting down more.
I'm not surprised they're having more sex.
Statistically, that's not true.
Statistically, people are having less sex.
That's true, but the way in which they're doing it is different.
I'm surprised that young people are not using protection, but I grew up in the AIDS scare, and so we don't have the AIDS scare anymore.
Right.
HIV and AIDS are not a death sentence any longer, so I think that there's less fear-mongering tactics.
Exactly. There's a lot less fear-mongering tactics.
So that's why kids are not using condoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I am. What are you doing to the dog?
On him.
Give him back his cells.
This is the laziest Netflix I've ever.
Even though young people account for half of the new STI cases, a recent survey showed that only about 12% were tested for STIs in the last year. That's scary. Mm-hmm. I think we really need to do a better job of educating our kids about getting tested. I've always told our son, I will take you, just let me know. They have a teen clinic. Let me know when you want to go. We'll talk to the doctor, yada, yada, yada. I have always given that support. As soon as I found out he was sexually active, which he was very open with me about, I knew I started having sex, and I knew what kinds of sex he was having and stuff. And we talked about risks, and we talked about protection. And this is the kid who I'm like, hey, don't steal my razors. You can transmit diseases through blood. Don't do that.
Yeah, I had testings offered through my college when I was, but that was, my fear wasn't based around sex, wasn't based around contracting something through sex. It was because I had been in risky tattooing situations and kind of freaked myself out about that.
Yeah, and I think that licensure for tattoo parlors and health and safety practices in tattoo parlors has definitely improved.
Don't get a tattoo in your friend's mom's living room while you're watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's the best, best advice I can give you.
Yes. All right. Wow. All right. The CDC estimates that undiagnosed STIs cause 24,000 women to become infertile each year. The total estimated direct cost of STIs annually in the United States is about $16 billion. And then I have stats broken out for all of the different infections, but I'll share the specific link. If you have questions about a specific STI, we are not medical professionals. We are people who get tested because we have sex with other people and we want to protect our family and loved ones. Yeah.
I like to think that it's actually kind of like tattoos evolved. Tattoos used to be, what was the saying, that they were only for sailors and convicts or whatever. And now everybody's got tattoos.
Yeah.
And testing is kind of going that way as well. It used to be, well, no, only dirty people need to get tested. And I think that's a lot less. So
it's still very prevalent.
It is, but it's less. It's got a directional trend.
Yeah. I guess. I haven't seen that.
So anyway.
I haven't seen that directional trend outside of the polyam and kink communities. When I talk to people who identify as monogamous or people who identify as serial monogamous, this is basically when I talk to people on Tinder. And I talk about testing, not because I want to have sex with them, just because I have, it's something I like to talk about. I think it's an important thing for people to be aware of. Know your status. the responses I get are ranging from complete disinterest to confusion to hostility about me talking about testing. That's
the experience that I have with talking to women on Tinder or Bumble, particularly if people women identify, is that they are people who have a year who don't get tested, who like testing never crosses the mind. Often, unprotected sex is kind of an expectation. But like they go, but you're like having sex with multiple people at once. Aren't you afraid you're going to get a disease? There's no, like,
the timing of it doesn't.
right.
Yeah, I don't
have an
have
effect
any
on that.
more sexual partners over a year than a lot
It
of
doesn't matter when
quote unquote
yeah.
single people have. It's just that they happen to like coincide very often.
You know, I don't want to have a moral high ground reaction to it, but I do think that because of my lifestyle and because of the stigmas attached with my lifestyle, that I try to be more informed about testing things than people who would not be in a lifestyle who don't face that stigma.
Well, and, you know, we should not have a moral, take a moral high ground stance. We do not have moral high ground. However, statistics do bear out that we are in a lower risk group because we are aware and because we have those conversations.
Well, we're not.
Because we do the testing.
We're not in a lower risk group. We are still considered a higher risk group.
Statistically, people who get tested are in a lower risk group
because
they are.
Yeah.
What's next?
That's all I've got. I think that wraps up our discussion of STIs, sexually transmitted infections. Please call them infections, not diseases. Please tell your friends. Please get tested. Please know your status. If you have any questions about testing, we're going to have lots of information in our show notes for you this week. We'll have links to information about the individual STIs you can get, and I'll put some stuff about false positives and things like that, just so that everybody can bone up on their clean boning. We're not using clean. They're sexually safe boning. Anything else for the good of the cause? Are we saying bye?
You've just heard the Pod Cultcast with your hosts Max, Hannah, Chastain, and Eric. Our theme music is Spencer Blues by Lobo Loco. Our break music is Gabarino from YouTube. Subscribe and review on iTunes or check us out on your favorite player. Visit our website at www.podcultcast.com to find all of our show notes and follow us on social media. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.